Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Some people left me comments asking about tips and strategies for listening. I believe listening is the most difficult in learning English. If we listen but don't understand what the audio says, it feels like we are dead. Don't worry, I feel you. Here I am. Today I'm going to talk about TOEFL listening lecture. I will share special tips and strategies. Let's get started. There are two types of listening, conversation and lecture. Lectures are more difficult than conversation because they are much longer and are about academic topics like astronomy, biology, etc. They are boring and pretty hard to understand, so some of you may panic, and most of you prefer to pick a vocabulary book and memorize the academic words immediately, right? I did this before. I organized over 1,000 words into Quizlet.com, but this strategy wasted a lot of time and didn't work. This is because listening is not about vocabulary, but it's about listening skills. What are listening skills? You understand what listening is about, but you may not know every single word from the listening. Let's see a quick example from TOEFLbank.com. I put the link in the description below. Check out the full version and practice later.
Okay, class, settle down. Today, I'd like to talk about plants that have been evolved to digest and suck out the nutrients from meat. That's right, carnivorous plants. Carnivorous plants, or sometimes called insectivorous plants, are plants that have adapted to capture and digest insects along with other small animals such as lizards.
I guess most of you don't know the words carnivorous plants. Neither do I, but I know they are plants and they adapt to capture and digest insects. That's enough. You just need to understand the key ideas rather than every single word. This tip doesn't only apply to TOEFL listening, but also daily conversation and listening. So start to practice listening skills rather than memorizing vocabulary. Even if you don't know these little words like adapt, capture, digest, insect, I can show you how to work on your vocabulary later. I usually practice listening to one passage more than 3 times. First, listen and time yourself to answer questions. Don't check the answers yet if you don't understand most parts of the passage. Listen again and see if you change your answers. Since you already know the questions, you are practicing to find the signals of questions. This will help you predict questions next time. Then you check answers and review the listening with the transcript. Figure out the words and sentences that you didn't understand. Then you can repeat listening to the same passage at a faster speed. You will memorize vocabulary naturally. This is the big strategy for improving listening. You can keep practicing for 1 or 2 weeks. Trust me, you will see the progress. Next is to predict questions for lectures. In the beginning, there's always a summary sentence like this. Pay attention to it. It will help you get to know the lecture topic earlier. The first paragraph of listening is always the introduction. In conversation listening, answers to gist questions are usually hidden here. But it's not the same case in lectures. Sometimes you need to finish the whole lecture to figure out the answer to a gist question. For example, the answer to the gist question of this listening is in the second paragraph. Then the lecturer will start to explain some details about the topic like classification, explanation, steps, etc. Pay attention and take notes down. Check out my video about note-taking. Remember to take notes in order. This is the transcript of the listening. I marked the places where indicated questions and answers. See, they show up in order. You can guess the answer according to the question order. Like conversation listening, there are also questions and answers in lectures. Students' questions are often the questions you will answer later, and the explanations from lecturers are always answers. Sometimes you'll hear the tone of speakers' voices is different, just like this. Pay attention to these signals. They may be the answers or questions later. I often kept taking notes while listening. It's a great way to stay focused. If you lose your focus, you may miss something important. But don't try to write everything down. Understanding listening is more important. Focus on getting the main ideas of each part. Although you don't know the exact words, you still can rule out the wrong answers. Alright, these are all tips for lecture listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Thank you for watching. See ya.